Welcome back to Man vs. Meeple. I am Jeremy Salinas, and this is the show where we talk about everything board game related. Today, we're going to be bringing to you Tides of Madness, which is a follow-up to Tides of Time by Portal Games, a really good two-player game. To help me walk you through the game is my frenemy, board game frenemy, that is, David Waybright.
Hello once again, everyone. Yes, we're going to be talking about Tides of Madness. This was one of the games that I was looking forward to on my Gen Con list.
It was high up on your list.
And it was also one of my first, maybe my first Cthulhu-based game that I've played.
I love these type of games. These two-player games that are just card-based, that you can just set up, play them, get them done in 10 to 15 minutes.
There's been a few of those that we've been playing lately, but this is sort of not the granddaddy of them all, but I remember last year at Gen Con when Tides of Time came out, I didn't know what it was, but I saw a lot of people when they were waiting in a line for something, sitting on the floor and playing this game where they were just laying these cards down, and I was intrigued by it, but I had no idea what it was, and then you had mentioned what it was, so I went and picked it up, and Tides of Time was one of my favorite games last year because I love two-player games, and like you said, you can set it up, you can play it over and over and over. It's a great little intro to drafting. But yeah, then Tides of Madness is a fantastic follow-up.
So we're going to walk you guys through a basic turn structure, and then at the very end of it, we're going to tell you our thoughts between Tides of Madness and Tides of Time, because I think that's what everybody really wants to know. Which of the two games is either better, or which one do we prefer?
Yeah, certainly if you're familiar with the first, we want to cover that for sure.
So super simple game. At the start of the game, there are 18 cards in the game. There are 5 different suits, and 3 of each of those different suits, and then the last 3 cards are non-suited.
Right.
Also, some of the cards have a symbol on the left-hand side, which are the tentacles, which are madness. And that's the big portion of this game that's different than Tides of Time.
That's the big addition for sure. Other than that, I mean, the first game had 5 suits as well. I mean, it's different iconography, but it's basically the same sort of game with that addition of madness, which I have to say is a great...
It's a game changer.
It's a great addition to the game. It changes the way
that you play the game, for
Absolutely.
sure. So at the start of the game, you shuffle all 18 cards up and then deal 5 to each of the 2 players. On your turn, you're going to pick one of those cards.
Right.
Each of those players is going to take one of those cards and simply put them face down in front of them, and they're going to pass the cards to the opposite player. And you will keep doing that, picking a new card. Oh, I'm sorry. You're going to reveal them at the same time. This is the unique portion of the game, is that you can start to get an idea of what they're going for. And this is where the interaction really comes into the game. You're trying to either build sets for yourself. The points are done by sets, or if you have the most of a particular icon, or if you have the most madness. There's a lot of different cards in here that interact with each other.
Yeah, you're getting little sets, or like you just said, there's the cards themselves. That's the other brilliant thing about this and Tides of Time. Everything you really need to know about playing it is right here on the cards.
Right.
It tells you how you're going to score. I mean, you just really need to know up front how many of each icon's in the deck and things like that. But you're just going to be looking at these cards, and unlike any other game, like Jeremy was just saying, once you start seeing the other player's cards, you start to realize very quickly this is not just a game about you scoring your points. It's also just as equally a game about you keeping your opponent from scoring his.
It's a game of statistics.
Yeah, because
figuring out what's left in the deck and what you can get the points for.
Yeah, you remember the difference in your scores at the end of the game has just as much to do with how few points your opponent scores as it does how many points you do score. So what that creates is an interesting tension when you're making decisions, because you're looking at your cards and you're like, oh, this one will be good. Oh, but if I take this one and I hand these 3 back, he's going to get this one, which is going to score him 8 points.
Right.
So you're just doing some quick math in your head when you draw those.
Let's go ahead and do some more. And reveal and pass. And we'll do this until all 5 of the cards, and we're just going to go through this as if we thought we knew what we were doing.
I am not choosing these cards.
We would actually be paying attention to what we were doing. But
that would be hilarious as if we end up scoring really, really well this way.
Hey, probably better than what I would normally score, right? So there's that. And I'll pick this one, and then you're going to pass the last card to your opponent. Scoring works in this way. At the very beginning of the round, you're going to lay your cards out in a tableau fashion in front of you, and for any of the cards that you have out here that have the madness symbol, which again are these tentacles, you're going to take these madness chips and lay them in front of you. If at the end of any of the 3 rounds in the game, you have 9 of these, you automatically lose. And it is very possible for both players to lose and there being no winner at all.
That's true. That is true.
This represents the madness or the cultists or the old ones. Or
just the classic Cthulhu-based thing where you're struggling not to go mad whole while the end is approaching.
Right. And then you're going to score the points that you have. And you're simply going to read up here to see if you have, for instance, this card requires majority in the blue icons. This one requires, for each green icon I have, double for my previously played card. So this would actually be played on a previously played card, and that could double the points for that particular one. You score up your points. At the end of the round, you're going to keep one of these cards.
Yep.
And you will both pick one in secret, lay it face down in front of you. You'll pick a second card to throw out of the game permanently, and then you'll reveal your cards, draw up 2 new cards into the 3 other cards you had, and you'll start another round. You'll do that 3 times.
Yeah, basically, so at the beginning of the second round, after you've done all that, you're going to be starting with 3 of the cards that you ended with in the prior round, plus 2 new cards.
Right.
And then you just do the same thing again.
Right.
You keep another card at the end of the round 2. You get rid of one. Draw the last. There's 4 cards left at that point.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting because you're keeping some cards long term, the ones that you keep on the table, but those cards keep going back and forth. And I will say this too. That decision about whether you're trying to keep cards that you want or get rid of cards you don't want your opponent to have, that's generally what I'm focused on. When I'm ditching a card out of the game at the end of those rounds, I'm usually getting rid of what I think Jeremy would want.
Right, right. We probably made that way more confusing, and I think that the game really deserves. It's very, very simple to play. It's fun. It's brilliantly designed game. It's one of those games that you can typically sit down and play it 3 or 4 times in one sitting.
And the ratio of simplicity to depth is significant here because this is one of the simplest games to play, and you'd think, well, how much could there be to it?
Yeah.
You're playing 5 to 7 cards by the end of the game, but there's quite a bit of depth and a lot of decision making. I mean, every time you're choosing, it's a significant amount of decision making, both in this and Tides of Time. One thing I did want to mention too, before we get to the comparison of Tides of Time, the madness, the other big thing, and we want to focus on this. When you collect the madness, like Jeremy said, if you get 9, you're out. But the other thing is, before you score your cards each round, whoever has the most, or whoever acquired the most madness that round, gets to choose whether they get a bonus 4 points, or you can get rid of one of the madness that you have.
Right.
So the madness becomes one of those things where you think, okay, well, I've got 3, so I'm not close to 9. It's safe. I'm going to keep it all and score 4 points. But then when you're like at 7 or 8 madness, you're like, nope, here, I'm going to get rid of a madness because you don't want to lose. Because if you have 7 or 8 madness before round 3, your opponent could literally just say, I'm not going to care about what cards I take. I'm just going to stick him with as many madness cards as possible.
Right, right. Phenomenal game.
Yeah, very good.
Let's get into the comparison of the two. They're both the same length to play, about 10 to 20 minutes, depending on who you play with.
Yep.
The main difference, as far as the components of the game, is that Tides of Time comes with the Relics of the Past, which are these little tokens.
Those are nice too. I'm a little surprised that those weren't included in Madness.
So these are placed on the card that you keep at the end of round 1 and the end of round 2, so it denotes which card you're keeping, which can get a little bit confusing in this game. You have to kind of set that card aside and then your second card aside, so you know.
Yeah, my guess is that maybe they intended, since there's all these Madness tokens,
just to place them on them.
You could place a Madness token on them for the same purposes. It's not super intuitive, but for lack of having anything, that's what came to my mind for sure.
And then the other main difference is obviously the madness itself, which changes the dynamic of the game substantially enough to make myself, and probably you as well, to want to stick with Tides of Madness over Tides of Time. Now, it can really depend on a person's preference too. Not everyone is into H.P. Lovecraft.
No. If someone detests that, and there's a lot of people at this point, since it's so prevalent in so many board games, that I don't want another Cthulhu game. I'm not one of those.
Yeah.
And I'd have to say, in contrast, Tides of Time, while I loved that game, and I loved it sort of just has a very vague fantasy theme.
Sure.
It's very themeless.
Yeah.
I mean, this too just has kind of a theme tacked onto it.
It's true.
But the fact that it includes the madness that you're like trying to avoid makes sense. This one has more flavor, in my opinion.
Way more flavor.
The theme has, the first one just had some really pretty fantasy images, and this one, the theme makes some significant, point to the mechanics as well.
Artwork is absolutely fantastic
In both games, but the artwork is great.
Yeah.
The artwork is great.
Card backs, I don't know why they kept them the same in both.
The card backs are interesting. It is, I believe, it is exactly the same. It appears
exactly
to
the
be
same in both games.
So I don't know whether or not they're. You can't really mix and match. Based on what I'm thinking.
No, and then why would Cthulhu not give you some madness? That's kind of an odd choice.
That is kind of interesting. Well, I guess when Cthulhu comes, though, it's
game over.
That's over anyway.
Nitpicking about little tiny things. This game is fantastic. We would both consider it a top shelf game.
Absolutely.
Something that you would keep on your shelf and come back to over and over again. Really good 2-player game. In our opinion, something that would replace Tides of Time for us just because it's the preference of the style of game that we like. It has a little bit more meat to it with the decisions that you make with the madness. So, anything to add?
No, we wanted to say, if you've been watching our videos, we have done some ratings. We've been experimenting, if you will, with some of the rating systems. We are going to step back from that a little bit and reevaluate. We do want to do something like that for you because we've got a lot of positive feedback. But, as you probably know, a lot of people have different opinions about different styles of rating. So we're going to be taking a look at that and doing something with that very soon. But like Jeremy said, right now we can tell you this game is one to have for sure.
Yeah.
It probably replaces Tides of Time if you have that. There's probably not much of a reason to have both of these.
Yeah.
But if you don't have either, it really just comes down to the theme.
So don't need a rating for this. Go out and buy it.
Yeah.
Thanks again for watching. Make sure you guys subscribe to us on YouTube, follow us on Twitter, and talk to us on Facebook.
Oh, absolutely.
Let us know your comments, and hopefully we can get back with you and let you know more about us.
We will talk back.
We will. Thanks again for watching, guys.
Bye-bye.
Season 1 of Man vs. Meeple is sponsored by TMG Games, publisher of great games like Yokohama, Guilds of London, and the soon-to-be-released Colosseum.